The regular meeting of the Rio Dell City Council. Roll call.
Mayor Garnes?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodall?
Here.
Councilmember Johnson?
Excused.
Councilmember Strand? Here. Councilmember Wilson? Here.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public presentations. This is the time for persons who wish to address the council on any matter not on this agenda and over which the council has jurisdiction. As such, a dialogue with the council or staff is not intended. Items requiring council action not listed on this agenda may be placed on the next regular agenda for consideration if the council directs, unless a finding is made by at least 2/3 of the council that the item came up after the agenda was posted and is of an urgency nature requiring immediate action. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Anything? You got it? Okay, we will move on then to the consent calendar. Would anyone like to pull anything from the, any staff, council member? Dave?
Dave?
Anything? Okay, then, can I have a motion then, please, to accept the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
Is there a second? I have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion carries 4-1.
4-0.
4-0.
4-0.
Yes. 4-0. Okay. Reports and staff communications. I expect 5 people. I always expect 5 people.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. The item begins on page 17 of your packet. Now, just some items that are not in writing on the staff update. The bike rodeo for the school district will be held on April 28th, which is a Tuesday, from 12:30 to 3 p.m. We are looking for volunteers to help facilitate the bike rodeo.
And it's a Tuesday?
Yeah. So if any of the council members would like to volunteer, send me an email and I'll get you more specific information. But it would be great if we got some volunteers from the council to help put on that safety event.
What's the date of it again?
April 28th, Tuesday, April 28th. And volunteers, the event will start at 12:30, but we would need the volunteers to be there at noon that day. And I'll send, if anybody's interested, just let me know and I'll send out an email. Excuse me. Also, the U.S. Census is going to be using the City Hall chambers over the next 2 months for about 15 different trainings that they will be needing to conduct for census workers. We will be placing some portable toilets outside of the building that meet ADA requirements to help facilitate them doing that. So you'll see some portable toilets out in front of City Hall. So if you get any questions, that's the reason why they're there for the census workers. So they should be wrapped up by mid-April with those trainings.
Is that for census workers just for Rio Dell, or are we doing a training for
I think
the
it's
general?
going to be regional, not just Rio Dell.
Love it.
It's not going to be just Rio Dell, and
Good.
so, but in an effort to help
No.
get some familiarity with the community, it seemed like a good opportunity
Absolutely.
to try to introduce folks to the community.
Yeah, that's great.
Like I said, it's approximately 15 trainings. I'm not sure that they're going to hold all of them. So But they're definitely gonna hold, at least 5 of them here. And then regarding the coronavirus situation, I do, just want to advise the council and members of the public listening that, the best places to access information about the virus are going to be county public health and the CDC website. The city does not have any special access to knowledge or information about this particular emerging crisis. So in the local government situation, the county takes the lead on public health matters. And so contacting county public health or relevant state or federal agencies is going to probably be just as fruitful, because that's where we're going to get our information as well.
Okay, Kyle, if I could just throw in there, the League of Cities held a meeting, teleconference on it last week, and they made the point that if there are issues that we are not able to get the answers to, that it is important for us to go to our local Department of Health first. And then if they don't have the answers, it'll bump up to the state, because the state, of course, is inundated with issues. And if we don't go to our local agencies first, then we skip over a vital, important part, and we could then, there could be a gap in information that we really shouldn't have. So it's really important to go to our local first. And also, they spoke of, and when I say they, it wasn't the League of Cities, it was the state that was actually giving us information. Hand washing is still the most important thing. There's a lot of stuff online that is not, well, some of it's false and some of it is exaggerated. And so we need to really get with our local governments to find out if we have any questions. But the whole hand washing thing, whatever you would do for your normal flu, it's the exact same thing you do for this.
Yeah, so, and just to add to that, we did add some Purell stations here at City Hall and down at the Corporation Yard for members of the public and employees to have easy access to hand sanitizing features. In fact, we actually have one of the dispensers right here. So if anybody needs to use it, it's right over here.
I used it.
And then staff did conduct a briefing and kind of a safety check-in regarding coronavirus down at the Corporation Yard today with Public Works to kind of go over the city's response and game plan. So I feel like we're in a good position overall at this point. And let's see what else is in the report. So there is, I will just add, I did have a discussion with some of the other area city managers, and there is definitely a lot of push in some of the other jurisdictions to really address the shelter crisis in the community, if not for the immediate homelessness crisis, but also to deal with the Boise decision, which restricts the city's ability to evict campers off of publicly owned property. And so there's going to be, grant applications submitted that potentially have a regional impact that Rio Dell is going to need to be involved in, just to make sure that, we are representing the interests of the city at these meetings. That's nothing immediately going on, but it is something that is definitely, as the governor ramps up the pressure on homelessness and there's more funding provided, certain actions are going to start to be taken by other cities or the county to do other projects in the overall county. So I did attend a pretty fascinating training with the Department of Health and Human Services at the county going to see if they can come down and give us similar training on all of the services and access to services that they provide that down here to the councils, into the community. And we'll talk later about the Monument Road slip out in the agenda. And we're continuing to work on the water grant application and our capital projects for the water side. We're making a lot of progress, and we're getting very close to being able to submit a grant application to help leverage some funds for improvements to the water system and replacement of some of the older lines. So we're looking forward to that. That's been the culmination of a lot of work over several years. So with
Can I ask some questions about that?
Mhm.
So are those local lines here, or what lines are you talking about?
Yeah, so lines all throughout the city of Rio Dell. So ones that we're not making application for specifically have to do with the Dinsmore Plateau area, but anything else within the city limits, there's pretty much no neighborhood that would go untouched in terms of what is currently under proposal.
And somebody, I think it was last meeting, somebody said something about the line going across the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to, what's?
Yeah, so right now, currently, there is a water main across the southbound bridge on the 101 that connects the main part of Rio Dell to the Humboldt Rio Dell Business Park, which also has the city's backup supply of water during a drought or other emergency. Used to be the city's primary source of water. We have been in several meetings with Caltrans where they have been discussing the replacement of that bridge and also the Mudgett Bridge, the Green Bridge, with a single structure down the middle between the two of them. Caltrans is not friendly to the idea of sharing their infrastructure, and it's also seismically not really the best place to have that location or the piece of infrastructure located. So if we can get a grant to pay for realignment of that water main, it would be advantageous because it would be directionally drilled, and so not as at risk during an earthquake, and would certainly last longer than the bridge.
That would be to go under the river again like we did with the sewer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very similar, very similar.
I had another question. The sign out that we have, our little LED sign, is that broke or is that?
No.
Because I haven't seen it work for about a month or so.
Yeah, we had, several months where there was a message almost every single day, and I think we just forgot to update it for the council meeting tonight, but it should still be operating.
Mhm.
When is maybe you know, the League of Cities? When
March
is that?
12th. March 20th. March 20th.
March 20th, and
Mhm.
it's here.
It's here. There'll be the business meeting here, or the legislative meeting. I can't remember which one. And then the other one, either the business or legislative, will then be over at the River Bluff Cottages. And then we will have a dinner and presentation at Benbow Inn.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions?
Are we down one officer?
We are doing one officer. Nick Carnahan left department, is working for the sheriff's department.
I think you'd mentioned that once earlier, that he was applying or.
Now, we'll move on to the fiscal. Dave, sir, would you have any question for the staff on the staff reports?
I live behind shops there on Mill Street, and I'm handicapped, I have one leg, and those, U-Hauls, I mean, they block the view of everything, I've almost been hit 5 times, and I've seen kids almost get hit. I mean, you can't see around that thing at all, and I thought maybe you guys could help, I don't know.
Okay, thank you, we will
Uh,
address that.
uh,
Thank you. Okay. Fiscal year 2019-20 mid-year financial report.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council.
Thank you.
I do want to thank Cheryl for her work in putting together this mid-year financial report. As the council is aware, Cheryl is our interim finance director, working part-time. She has really an absolutely unmatched wealth of experience in terms of her work history, which has involved working for county public works on projects there. She's been the assistant CAO for the county. She's been the assistant auditor controller for the county of Humboldt, and basically the acting auditor controller for the county of Humboldt. So we're really blessed to have Cheryl working with us on this particular budget. And overall, I think Cheryl will give a report on the latest for this particular mid-year. We did have an additional handout for the council, excuse me. By error, there was a balance sheet that was not included in the packet, but is available to the council members and also available to the public up here at the days. With that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Cheryl. Thank you.
Okay, so I will say, I do enjoy the warm-hearted community of Rio Dell. And
Awesome.
the, I don't know, the ability to kind of have a better understanding of what's going on.
Nice.
In the county, it's like really a tiny piece of,
We have a good camaraderie here amongst the staff, and, you know, I think, you know, when I talked to Cheryl about working here, there was a lot of, you know, questions about kind of the overall financial picture of the city of Rio Dell. And I think, you know, I don't want to put words in Cheryl's mouth. She can speak to it, but the financial picture in the city overall is quite strong and in a good position. But I'll let Cheryl say that and get to the report.
I can put that in a, so the actual total citywide beginning fund balances for the current fiscal year were 6.5 million, and our total budget was 4.4 million. That means there's more in fund balance than the whole budget, which is pretty unusual.
That's awesome.
So why doesn't it, where does it say that on here?
Well, that was taking the last page.
It says budget
It
outlook.
says budget outlook
Uh-huh.
and the total fund balance of 6.5 million, and then looking at page 1 and the total budget of 4.4 million, or the first paragraph in the summary, which says the total budget was 4.43. But with that note, I will go in order through the report rather than taking the back and sticking it to the front. So at mid-year, the total expenditures were less than the revenues by $243,588, which is a good thing. The revenues, 42% of revenues had been received, and let's see, where's the expenditures? 35% of expenditure of funds had been expended. The general fund revenues lag behind, so the basically property tax comes in a couple months late because of the way it's distributed through the county, and the sales tax runs a couple months late because of the way it's distributed through the state, which is why the general fund is at 21%. The other funds, the enterprise funds, are just about half, right at half. Going into the general fund, the expenditures for the current year were 41% expended for the operating, 35% total, so the capital projects are lagging behind in expense because they take a while to get up and running. Compared to last year, the expenses were 38% at the same time last year, and that was primarily because the police department was not fully staffed last year. The first half of this year, it was fully staffed. So going forward, it's expected that revenues in the general fund will come in at budget or possibly slightly higher, and expenditures are on target and should come in just about as budgeted. So that runs through the general fund. The street funds have a similar issue with revenues coming in a little bit delayed, but they're at 35%. When I went and looked up forecasts for the budget, the highway user tax estimate has been adjusted to be lower, and the SB1 revenues have been adjusted to be higher. These are the numbers that are created by the league. I think it's, and so that's good news because the one that's smaller is anticipated to be $2,880 lower, and the other one's anticipated to be $6,300 higher. Overall expenditures are at 42%. In this particular fund, the expenditures are slightly higher. Then you go into the enterprise funds, and revenues are at 54%, and expenditures are at 52%, so pretty much right where you would expect at mid-year. The enterprise funds operate consistently. You bill everybody every month. There's some fluctuation on water usage throughout different parts of the year, but that you would expect it to be fairly consistent. And the revenues are also coming in fairly consistently. The debt service is expended all in one lump sum, so that does cause the expenditures to look higher. So likely the expenditures will be, well, if current spending trends continue, expenditures could be below budget. And basically the same pattern is in the water. The revenues for the water and sewer go out on one bill, and the revenues come in fairly consistently. The expenditures, operations is at 39%, debt service is at 50%. That one's two payments rather than one single large payment, and everything else is pretty much on budget. And then we go into the budget outlook, and at the beginning of this I talked about when the budget was developed at the beginning of the year, the fund balances were estimated to be 5.1 million, but when we actually ended last year, they were 6.5 million. So that means you had more money to start the year, so you're in a better position. And if the budget continues as anticipated, it means you would have that similar type of fund balance to go into next budget year. The budget outlook, looking out, if you had a crystal ball and you were trying to guess what was going to go on, there's always potential. The mandated water quality regulations and other mandates that come down from the state are always a risk for sewer. Streets revenues continue to not be sufficient, and I believe they're starting to look again to create a coalition to try to help local agencies get more revenues. We have a pending salary survey. An economic downturn is becoming much more likely. That, fortunately for the current year, most of the things that we have would not be impacted in the short run. The property taxes are already set for the year. Sales tax would be the more likely one to suffer. And then overall, revenues are at a historic highs, but operating costs continue to grow. And I will pass it over to Kyle if he wants to add anything with his crystal ball.
Yeah, we've seen with this budget that dispatch costs have gone up. We've seen animal care costs go up, public safety software costs go up. So there's, just general operational inflationary costs that the city does face. I think certainly one of the best avenues for the council to spend money, I think, is to take care of long-term risks to the city. So, for example, there's a lot of capital need in this community, particularly to streets. So I think the council, with the overall having extra set of expert eyes looking at the budget, making sure that we're in a good financial position, I think we have a little bit more freedom to make certain investments in streets would be probably one of the number one priorities, because they do, they are assets that if they're not properly maintained or repaired, they only continue to deteriorate and only continue to incur a higher cost. So I would encourage the council to look in terms of one-time investments to really look towards the streets in our upcoming budget here, and also through the remainder of this year. We do have some outstanding projects that we're hoping to get completed before the end of this fiscal year. And it's possible because the weather is looking like it's going to be unusually good construction-wise through the rest of the year. We are probably going to have to come back to ask for some additional money to complete some of the street projects. So we did have money budgeted for slurry sealing. That is currently out to bid. Fortuna issued that bid. It's a regional slurry seal project. And then we're also looking into some additional projects for the council to bring back. But I do want to, make sure that the council's aware of the financial position of the city is overall in a good position. However, some of the service delivery issues are, really at question. One of that is a big one. Piece of that is not just the roads, but in terms of personnel retention. That's a really big one, especially in a city where you don't necessarily have a lot of depth in the departments, where you have, one person wearing multiple hats, and when they leave, for example, in the police department, you're losing 1/6 of your entire workforce, and somebody who's built up a lot of local knowledge on how things work, and then that has to, those individuals have to be trained back up. It's very difficult to do, and it's time intensive. So, those are some of the service delivery questions that, I want to make sure that we're focusing our attention on, not just on the cold hard numbers here, which for the time being, in particular with Measure J, are in a solid position. We also have cannabis tax revenue that's looking like it's growing, which is a positive indicator. And we also have some new potential both cannabis and non-cannabis businesses on the horizon that we're very eagerly anticipating. So, overall, the financial position of the city is improving and looking good, but we do have areas that need investment to help secure a more sustainable future for the city. So, I don't know, we can go to the council and see if there's any other questions or any other comments from staff.
Questions?
So I do, Cheryl, so on page 1, where it shows revenue by fund, and it comes for the budget total is 4090. So that doesn't include balance on hand then, is what you're telling me.
Correct, that's budgeted revenue.
Okay,
That means that's what you budgeted to spend.
yes, well, when I
Or no,
look at.
receive, sorry, receive.
Right, what we're receiving, but we're spending 4.4.
Yes,
Is that
because
correct?
you're using, that's where you're using the reserve.
Our
So you're
reserve
using
funding.
the difference between those two.
Yeah,
So you have 6 point something million and you're using
400,000.
400,000 of it.
but it was still going the wrong direction for me. So, thank you.
Those were all, I will add the one time, the difference between the actual revenues anticipated to be received and the expenditures are all on one-time capital improvements. One-time expenditures, not ongoing.
Thank you. Anything else?
She answered most of my questions already.
What do you need, Dave, anything? Any questions out there? Keep it down. Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. Now we're on to the appointment of ad hoc committee-related development of request for proposal related to utility rate studies. Kyle.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. This item's on page 24. I did talk with Councilmember Woodall, who was originally appointed by the council to be on the utility rate ad hoc committee. And Councilmember Woodall expressed a desire to resign from the committee. So we're basically just looking for the mayor to make a recommendation for the replacement of Councilmember Woodall and for the council to vote on it.
So I was going to recommend, as you can see, Councilmember Johnson, who's said that he would be interested. So that would be who I would choose, but we can have a vote. Is there a motion to, or is there, or would you, is there an, some other?
Can I do it?
Well, as Councilmember Johnson actually, said that he would like to already.
Was he
It's kinda-
approached?
Was he asked?
Yes.
Yes, I did ask him. And he was, he said that he would be interested in doing it, and he would, it's kind of his kind of gig. And so that's why I asked him, because it's kind of his kind of gig. And if I'm looking across the board, who's here more, I would have to say, even though he's not here now, he is actually here more. So that's kind of where I was weighing the balance. So that's kind of where I am. So we can vote on it and,
So does ad hoc?
it's
can't
an
you
ad
just
hoc committee.
I know, but can't you just appoint?
No, well, I can
Oh,
suggest.
oh, okay.
I can suggest, and then the
Okay.
council has to
Ratify the appointment.
ratify, thank you for those words, ratify the appointment. So, I had definitely approached him, and that was basically my reason, is because he has been here consistently more. And so it seemed like that it would be less of a, issue of, what are you doing today? So that's how, and because he's an engineer, and he's got a lot of engineering information, and he's, very heady in that kind of situation. So that is actually why I asked him if he would, and he indicated that he would be interested in it. And so so we can vote. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve,
Councilmember Johnson,
yes, to the ad hoc committee.
is there a second? I can second it. I will second it, and then we will go for the tie vote. Here we go. All right. Success. Motion carries 3-1. Discussion on untethered and/or unattended dogs. That was my, there's been a lot of issues, a lot of loose dogs. It's constant in Rio Dell. I can't walk my little dog. People, you go to Scotia to walk your dog, you go to Fortuna to walk your dog. It is something that we need to address. It isn't something that we need to do a committee for. It's just something that we need to, and we in my opinion, as the council, we need to put some teeth in an ordinance. We need to enforce an ordinance. We have, until recently, we had a full staff of police. We have Measure Z funds. There's got to be a way to enforce getting this under control. Rio Dell has a lot of loose dogs, and it is very uncomfortable. People have had their little dogs attacked. People have come after. People have been come after, and it's constant. It's not rare. It'd be a different thing if it was rare. It's a real thing. It's a constant thing, and so I wanted to have a discussion about it because I think that we need to really address this and not just keep saying we don't have enough police officers to deal with it. We don't have enough manpower. We don't have enough staff. Because that argument really, really gets old after a while, and especially when you have a full police force, which we don't now, but we were this close. But so I just wanted to bring that to the council's attention and ask if we could all look at the ordinances at the and try and come up with an idea or recommendations for what we can do, whether it's raising the fees for fines rather, but some way to get control of this situation, because someone getting attacked or mauled or whatever is just, it should be unnecessary in a city if you have any kind of control over your situation. And so I would like to look at this and come back as a council, if we need to sit down with the chief, whatever we need to do, but actually put this at a priority level, because lives and dogs and pets and everything, they're at issue. And so I think that it's an important thing.
Can I ask Chief something? Chief, do we have anything that addresses that right now? I know when I was in Fortuna, they have a leash law that was posted. I was walking by one of the parks.
Yes, we have an ordinance.
Okay.
We do, we have, but I just don't know, when there's dogs that are loose, you get the dogs, you take them to Miranda's, or you go to the homes and say, why are your dogs out? Because a lot of, and this is something that I know from actually firsthand knowledge from dogs that live on the street that I live on. People open their doors and let their dogs out and just, go do your business somewhere. And these are, big dogs. They're not little dogs that you can kick halfway across the room, And so that's the kind of thing, in my opinion, that needs to be addressed, where we say, you cannot do that, not and get away with it. You will have to face a fine. There's got to be some means. I mean, other cities get control of it. There's got to be some means that you don't have to leave your city to walk your dog or to walk yourself. So I would like to see if we could come back with some ideas, come back with something, and try and get this thing kind of a little bit more under control.
Has there been people attacked with dogs, or?
Yes, there's been a couple. Last week there were two different people. There were two dogs up on the two dogs that I was referring to up on my street. They're big boxers. They went after a person, and fortunately, the person was able to get their back against the wall and had something they could swing and raise their voice enough and get them to go away. They circled back, repeat the scenario, and then apparently they went down Monument.
The dogs?
The dogs. So You know, and the police responded, they went and they talked to him, and I know that, because I saw them down there speaking to them. But, you know, that's kind of after the fact, when, if, you know, if a person doesn't have anything they can swing, or if they just like deer in the headlights, they're just in trouble. And the Ruth that comes, she's had 2 corgis attacked.
The one lady that's come here?
You know, and so it just needs to, it seems to me there needs to be something we can kind of, we should be able to get a little bit bigger and stronger and say, you know, this is enough. So,
Well, and I'm not trying, I'm just trying to be devil's advocate.
Yeah, no,
I know
no.
I see stuff on social media and I hear, and I know there's dogs that run around our neighborhood. There's one in particular that every time I tell him to go home, he goes home, but he likes to come over to the store. He wants to get people, and you might know who that dog belongs to. But he
Not me.
not her dog.
I do not have a dog.
He's not her dog. But he comes over there to get something to eat, I think. And he's not an aggressive dog, but there are dogs around. And I see a lot of pictures of them around in the city, and out short of having a dog catcher, because I think it's the police department's responsibility, but I mean, the police department, I think they have bigger things that they're doing with their resources and chasing dogs, so.
but like
I
Measure
don't
Z
know what did other
funds,
cities do without having a bona fide dog catcher chasing dogs? I mean, what,
well, that's why I was thinking
alternative do
like
we have?
fines or something that gets the attention of the dog owner. That's what I'm
well,
thinking, like,
I have a little less popular idea, but I mean, that won't work in today's society. So, but if they're, I've gone up and said things to people with dogs on my lawn, and that wasn't very appropriate. I went, well, appropriate work, but it wasn't the kind of thing you'd want to suggest in the council meeting.
right. Or maybe we do.
I know the post mistress up there was saying that there's several of our delivery people that don't want to deliver on Riverside Drive because of a German Shepherd that they've had problems with.
So,
Maybe can we take it to the nuisance committee and maybe have a discussion there about it and
I would come,
look at what the ordinance really says?
good
and-
idea.
That's a good idea.
I will come to the nuisance committee. All right, well, thank you. See, that was easy. And now we'll move on to the update on monument slip out. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. On page 27 of your packet, you'll just see a quick little schematic of the proposed design for the fix of the Monument Road slip out. It's only 30%, 35% design, so there's still a lot more detail that has to be worked out, including a more accurate cost assessment for the design. But overall, staff is very pleased with the design. Just to recap, because this has been many years in the making, the February 2017 storms caused a slip out on Monument Road. It was a federally declared disaster, which was very fortunate for the city and the county. So what that means is that the cost of the repair of that slip out will be covered by the federal government up to 75% of the total cost. Now, the California steps in and will cover 75% of the remaining 25%. So, long story short, local share is about 6.25%. So, so originally, this slip out is pretty unique for from the county's perspective and from our perspective as well, in that it occurred, basically directly on the city limits. So half of the slide or slip out is in the county, half of it is in the city. In the end, the county ended up taking charge of this particular project. They have the expertise, and working with Cal OES and FEMA is quite a process. And so the county has people who are dedicated to doing this, because they have 300 of these projects elsewhere in the county. So quite a bit of storm damage that they work on regularly. So we were able to meet with them last week and get an update on where we're at. In the end, the final robust design that was recommended on site by the city engineer is the one that's being proposed. You may recall that FEMA had some issues with this particular design, but in the end, they have relented because the county did some geotechnical work up there that showed that this particular design needed to occur. Basically consists of two 11-foot lanes plus a 4-foot shoulder, and railing on the side. So it's a little bit hard to see, but on the map here towards the north end will be is where John Deere Road intersects with Monument Road, above this line here. And so there will be curb and gutter installed there, as well as replaced drainage solution in there. So overall, the design is very good. We're very pleased with it. In terms of getting back to the cost share arrangement, because these are only 35% designs, we don't know the exact cost, and kind of a back of napkin estimate for this is about $3 million all told from top to bottom. So the city's share is going to be potentially roughly around $100,000. As we get closer, we may find out it's a little bit cheaper. We may find out it's a little bit more expensive. But that's the cost for approximately 260 some odd feet of decent roadway on that section. It does involve some realignment of the right-of-way because the right-of-way does not correspond to the maps. So some right-of-way would have to be acquired by the county and the city. However, that's also covered under the grant. So project completion date is currently estimated at construction season for 2021. So we're kind of entering the final stages here. We have invited county staff to come and give a presentation when they get closer to the 60% designs and have a little bit more firm information on the design. So when they have that, we'll bring them back to the council to give a presentation. So I would expect a lot of questions from Councilmember Johnson, who's not here, but if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them or ask them of the county.
Is the 6% allowing that the county has a certain, they got a share of that 25% of the 25% of the,
Yeah.
so part of that's theirs and part
We're,
of it's.
we're gonna split it 50-50 because that's basically the proportion of the responsibility. It's just the easiest split.
So are we splitting 6%? Are we, so we're, of the $100,000, it would be 200,000 and we're paying 100? Or we're splitting 100,000?
It would be $200,000 if the slide had occurred completely within the city of Rio Dell, but because it's split, we're gonna split that local share.
That's really my only question.
So, so yeah, overall, a pretty good deal. There's a reason why, the FEMA really, puts is very skeptical of these types of projects because they're extremely expensive
Yeah.
to do. So, but that particular location has had several slides in the past. If you go on the lower portion of the slip out and even just look over the edge of the old roadway, you'll see there's not been just one slip out there, but multiple over
Oh, yeah.
many years.
Absolutely.
And what they have done is essentially just fill the slip out and then pave over it. And so this is, according to the engineers, the actual solution that would prevent future slip outs, at least below the road. But
So we're gonna have to budget for this 100,000.
yeah, so yeah, I think I don't know that we necessarily need to include it in the upcoming budget. But I think when we get closer to the 60% design and have a more accurate figure, then that's time to get a little bit more serious about when's the appropriate time to put it into the budget.
What's the construction season?
What's that? Oh, just when it's
In the
not
summer.
raining. When it's not raining.
So the HCOG funds that we get, can we put towards this? I mean, if we need to start budgeting and looking at this.
I don't know. We can certainly look into that. We haven't, developed a financing plan for coming up with the city's share. But there are multiple avenues. There's general fund. We would have to look at the streets fund balance, but I don't think that's it's probably just about what the fund balance is. So we'll
Well, I
certainly.
know our share was 42,000 from HCOG this year,
Oh,
and that's pretty much each year, goes up a little,
mhm.
couple of percentage, but over 2 years, that would cover the cost if we earmark it.
Yeah, the good news is we have quite a bit of time between now and when there would be some costs incurred, so. So with that, unless there are any other questions, I'm happy to.
I just asked the one question.
You're like, why am I the only one here tonight? Okay, now we will move on to the final subject, ordinance number 379-2020, repealing section 17.30.290, second dwelling units, section 17.30.190, medical marijuana regulations, establishing section 17.30.020, accessory dwelling units, and renumbering Chapter 17.30, General Provisions and Exceptions of the Rio Dell Municipal Code. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. This item is just a housekeeping item. The staff would like to introduce the first reading of ordinance number 379-2020. This is just the first reading, so this item will appear at the, if the council continues it, will appear at the next council meeting. Unfortunately, Community Development Director Caldwell is unable to be here due to illness this evening. But this one's relatively straightforward. The section 17.30.290, the secondary dwelling units, is just a change or a deletion that's state mandated. Similarly, the section regarding the accessory dwelling units is also state mandated to establish, so we're essentially adhering to state law. And then the medical marijuana section, which is section 17.30.190, is just a cleanup deletion that should have been repealed when the current cannabis regulations were adopted, that include both medical and non-medical cannabis. So with that, what staff is recommending is that the council open the public hearing, receive any public input and deliberate, and then continue the consideration, approval, and adoption of the proposed ordinance to your meeting of March 17th, 2020, or the next regularly scheduled council meeting for the second reading and adoption.
Council, are there any questions?
No, I attended the planning commission meeting, and they pretty well went over this. Like I say, it's more housekeeping. You see the stuff where they're renumbering and it eliminating stuff that we had, so it seemed pretty straightforward at the meeting the other night. And I think the planning commission, it was unanimous. They voted
Oh, thank you.
to move ahead with it.
Is it state mandated for all communities, including rural communities?
I believe so, yes.
And is there A motion to accept this and,
You need to open it to public.
oh, I did ask
Oh,
Dave.
okay.
I just, I didn't say it very loud. I was,
Okay.
Dave, you got anything? So,
And the motion would just be to continue
to
the
continue, right,
consideration.
okay.
I'll make a motion to continue.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. We will continue this. Motion carries 3-1 to move this forward to, or carry it forward, continue it forward to March 17th. Are there any council reports, communications?
Oh, I just wanted, this weekend I went to the, opening of the Gene Lucas Community Center. It is really
Isn't
nice.
it beautiful?
And, they have a wonderful senior center there. Offers lots of activities and, you can join and have a membership, but you don't have to. And they've got things like walking, biking, hiking groups, yoga, maintaining mobility, art classes, dance classes. And it was just, it's a really nice thing, and it's open to everybody, so it'd be a nice thing for our community to utilize
Absolutely.
also.
Absolutely.
Having a Humboldt Transit meeting tomorrow, and on Friday, the Chamber meeting.
I just went to RCEA monthly meeting, and there's not a lot to report. They're just kind of going over ongoing stuff. There's nothing big,
Nothing there.
earth shattering going on right this month. Maybe
Yeah.
next month.
We had our HCOG meeting and there wasn't anything earth-shattering there either.
All right, and I've been on a committee of what comes next after Terrigen, and it's a group that's getting together people who were involved in the whole thing from HSU, from different cities, the communities around, and to figure out what we can do to kind of preemptively look at things, try and sort where we want to go, because we do all understand climate change. We just felt that this wasn't a good project. So there's that. And the senior group that comes here, that Rick Pellerin who comes, they have been utilizing the River Bluff Cottages community room for their exercise program, for their senior exercise programs, and they're hoping that some of the residents will come and join them. They haven't yet, but they are enjoying the space and feeling welcomed and feeling very comfortable in that space. So that's a great, it's already an asset. So that's good. And that's all.
Do you know anything about the furniture and stuff down there? It's all A-okay, or does anybody
Oh, if they needed something?
have a take on that?
Yeah, I think that's with the Chamber of Commerce, the donation, but they did end up, DANCO did end up furnishing or providing some basic furnishings for the apartments. They're actually extremely nice furnishings, so there are some supplies that have already been provided to the residents.
Thank you.
So I think that's all. Is there a motion to go home? Is there a motion to?
adjourned.
Is there a second? Motion and second. Go vote if you haven't. You still have half an hour, and we will call it a day.
They went and got a couch, and they got a grant, actually, the DHH had a grant.
That's what I heard.
And then,
That's why.
yeah, that, Yanko went perfect.